Magic. I always sing this song on a Thursday. Everything is magic. Oh. So we're just going to call this frequency then, are we?
Frequency, vibration, and sound, or you can shorten it if you want to.
Yeah, I don't think I'll fit all that in.
Just call it frequency
I'll
then.
try. I'll try. Frequency, vibration, sound. Yeah, I can get that in. Yeah, it doesn't stop me.
Cool.
So we'll stick with that one. Right, I'm poised. Ready? Are you poised? Ready?
I am poised. Ready.
Okay, I'll do the countdown. Press the start button, then it's over to you.
Cool.
So it's 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everybody. Hope you're all well. I hope you are all vibrating at a frequency which is holistic, let's say that. So today I'm going to be talking about frequency, vibration, and sound. So I'm a little bit of a stickler for the order of of those particular things. Although, if you want to swap them around, then you can do. The reason for that is that sound begins as a frequency. Yeah, it then vibrates, something vibrates, and then a sound emerges. So essentially, I think I've mentioned this before. So myself and Ian kind of see ourselves as voidians, as in of the void. So in that respect, when the void, which is the quantum field, so the dog's just doing some weird things with a curtain. That's weird. Anyway, so the void is the quantum space, the space where all possibilities reside. Yeah. So in the void space is, you could also say it's a big ball of timey-wimey stuff. You could say whatever you like about the void. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't mind. But essentially, if everything comes from the void, then inside that void, frequencies would happen, which then, move particles, if you like, neutrinos, if you want to be really specific. And then out of that comes a wave, because all these things are waves. It all goes in waves, yeah. So out of the void then comes things that form solid matter. But when you look at all the different things, so I've talked about this before, all the different things that I've got around me at the moment, from magnifying glasses, just one of those, cards, bits of paper, my phone, crystals, all these things. So how does a crystal differ from an oracle card, for example? Or how does the crystal differ from, what have I got here? I've got some dried petals. What's the difference? How does it know what shape, what form, what solid thing it's going to coalesce into? Yeah, that's the frequency. That's the frequency. So yeah, where does that frequency come from? Okay, so I speculate that that's a blueprint. So in the void, you could say that there are many different blueprints floating around, if you like. There is actually an entity that lives in the void, because Ian was asking these questions a couple of years ago. After he connected with the Hathors, which are an interdimensional race of beings that reside on Venus. I think some of them have come to this planet, but essentially they are residing on Venus. So after he got this contact with the Hathors, he also, when during his questions, he was asking of the part of him that is bigger and sees everything. Some people call it the higher self. He asked the question, what resides in the void, and he got, I think I've said this before as well, the being called Orsyn, Orsyn, yeah. And the way it moves is very, it's like you see it, but you don't see it. So an example of what it might look like. So there's an episode in Farscape where Crichton goes into the light and he sees this moving creature that you don't see the whole of it. You just see bits of it moving. And it's the thing that lives between dimensions, which I find really fascinating. It didn't have a name, but that's what it described itself as. Also, in the film Alien, the first one, when the creature is in, so when Ripley escapes the ship and she's in the pod thing, yeah, she's in the escape craft, and it's like you can sort of see there's something in the shadows, but you know, now and again it catches the light and then you realize what it is, obviously. So Orson is a little bit like that, how it moves, it never stays still. So that's the thing about the void space, where all things, all frequencies, all blueprints, all everything's, every single possibility that we can even get our head around, yeah, all these things are in the void, yeah. So if that's where it begins, then where does it end? It all begins and ends in the void, obviously. So you know, this crystal, I'm holding up a crystal in case if you're not on YouTube. It's a piece of what is it? It's I can't remember what it's called. What are you called? Aragonite. So this crystal will have a specific frequency, yeah. As it decided, as it came out of the void, and with the blueprint attached, if you like, yeah, on, you know, how it was going to form in the earth, yeah, that took a specific frequency. So remember that, okay. So the same for everything, yeah. So you could say, well, you know, some things are man-made, yeah, we might make them, but where does the stuff come from that we make those things with? So okay, it comes from the earth, yeah, okay, but then where did those building blocks that make everything, where does that come from? So you could say imagination. So through the pineal gland, which is a portal, yeah. So some of you might have, let me give you an example. So some of you might have experienced this. We were talking to people today who've experienced this phenomenon. We've experienced many times this particular phenomenon where something appears in your reality that was not there the day before. It's not even something that looks new. It's something that looks like it's been there for a long time, but you never saw it in your reality before you saw it. Yeah. So where you could say, well, okay, so where did that come from then? Well, somehow that has appeared on a waveform, on a frequency, yeah, and manifested, like coalesced in your reality. Does this, I hope this makes sense so far. So when you have a crystal, let's go back to the crystal. Yeah, when you have a crystal, this little piece of crystal I have, because it has a particular frequency, even though it is separated from the big crystal that it would have been part of at one point, it's still connected to all those crystals. Does that make sense? So by having a piece of this aragonite that I am holding, I'm actually connecting to something a lot bigger, which is how that's the nature of who we are. So we are an individual, an individualized part of something a lot bigger, which now they kind of, I don't know if any of you ever watched the series Fringe. So that is a really interesting idea around frequency. Yeah. So each universe, so there's multiple universes, multiple dimensions. Each one of those has a bit like this crystal, a particular frequency. Yeah. So if something comes from a parallel or a parallel universe or a different dimension, can it actually exist for an extended period of time in a universe or a dimension that its frequency does not match? So it's like a tuning, if you like. So so the example that I could use here, so if you have an instrument that is tuned to 432, it sounds very different to an instrument that is tuned at 440. Yeah, it's very different. It sounds different. It feels different. So why not? Why not? Different dimensions have different tunings, which would mean different frequencies. Yeah, only very slightly different. But would that mean that something, a piece of aragonite from a parallel universe that is tuned slightly differently to a piece of aragonite that's in this dimension, this universe, yeah, could it exist in a different dimension with a different tuning? Why is that even relevant? Well, there's a number of reasons. People, we were watching a thing today about guys talking about, we're all doomed because beings from this place, that place are, going to put things in your brain. It's like, oh my God. This is supposed to be someone who knows what they're talking about. But if you take that idea of, different parallel, you could call it parallel universes or other dimensions, however you want to describe that. If when they cross through and I mean, to break through that, I don't know how easy that would be. It's a bit like wormholes, isn't it? And time travel. They say that it would take an awful lot of energy to do that. I don't know, because as far as I know, I've never done it, but I might have done. Who knows? So if you are coming through from another dimension or another universe, how much could you actually do before you went poof? Yeah, because there'd be so in terms of frequency, that would create possibly something that was like infrasound. I don't think that something from another dimension could, unless it was able to change its frequency, possibly. But I think it's why you get in sci-fi. So again, sci-fi is an amazing teacher, yeah. So if a being from another planet wants to be on this planet, they have to have some kind of technology which compresses or changes their frequency. So it's not something that is innate in their being. They have to have a technology which does that. Okay, I'm going to go off on a slight tangent here. The interesting thing about that, back in 2021, I got a very clear message that there was something under the Antarctic that was generating a frequency which allowed some type of being to be on this planet. Because I got a very clear message in 2022, so it was the next year, that they had gone. because the machine that was creating this frequency that allowed them to be on this planet had been stopped. It had stopped working for whatever reason. And that the following year, although puppet masters, if you want to call them that, had actually gone. They had left the planet because they could not physically exist in this frequency. So how do we kind of put this together? So our thing, the thing that we talk about a lot is love consciousness, which is essentially the tuning, if you like, of 432, which is the closest thing we can get to nature, which is the whole planet. Yeah. It might be why, you know, it's told that, you know, when people were creating music, the frequency was changed from 432 to 440. I don't know. I wasn't there when it happened. Possibly. But it might explain why when you listen to a piece of music that is tuned to 432 as opposed to 440, it feels very different. You know, the old instruments, that's why we love folk music so much, especially if they make their own instruments, because they are not, generally speaking, they are not in this newer, for a better word, frequency. Yeah. So love consciousness for 32 hertz is our natural frequency, because we are beings of light. So we are, you know, by definition, we are expansive, which translates as beings of love. Yeah. And you know, I mean love in the most expansive, creative sense. Yeah, not a kind of Ningbu way of looking at love. Yeah. So when you take that into account, this idea of we are a naturally tuned to nature, to love, to light and expansion, I don't know, it would a nefarious alien who wants to come in and put things in your brain, would they even be able to exist in this tuning, if you like, of 432? I don't think they would. And again, how do have we got some kind of example of, okay, so there are people that can use their voices, just their voice, at a particular frequency that shatters glass. So what does that tell you? It means that glass is not at the same frequency as what is coming out of that being's mouth, for a bad word. So it goes, it explodes. I find it fascinating. I really do. So when we talk about frequency, vibration, you know, the thing that we call our brains operate in different states of frequencies. Yeah, throughout the day, we will go through different brainwave states. Yeah, frequencies essentially. Yeah, which then create a vibration that then it's not necessarily sound, but it's a wave that ripples out, yeah, and creates certain types of behaviors. So if you're active, very busy, that's kind of a beta brainwave state. If you are very relaxed or you're just about to fall asleep, that's the alpha brainwave state. Dreams or deep meditation, your REM sleep is theta brainwave state. And then you've got the delta waves, which are very deep, kind of the dreamless sleep state. And when you lose awareness of your body, which you can actually get to in meditation. If you are able to sit in silence and stillness, you will get to that delta brainwave state, which is the only way I can describe it. It's like your body has no boundary anymore. There's no boundary to your being anymore. And when I've experienced this for the first time, I didn't realize what I was experiencing was the being in the void, the Orsin. Because the only way I could describe it at the time was like it felt like octopus or jelly or something, which is what Ian described as Orsin. This was like a year or so later when he got this confirmation. There is actually an entity, a being, a presence in the void. There is also the gamma brainwave state, but no one can quite agree on what that means. What a surprise. I find that quite interesting. So it's everything is frequency first. So when it comes to what we experience in our reality, and don't forget, yeah, because we've kind of questioned this idea of it's a mirror, or what you experience in your reality is a direct reflection of your internal being, if you like, your internal state. But what you got to remember is the way I look at this is like you're in a bubble, yeah, of your frequency, yeah. This bubble is clear, so sometimes you see other people's bubbles, so they might have a very not a frequency of love consciousness. Let's just say it that way. So you can see their reality that they're creating, but you're not part of it. But sometimes it can get confusing. Like, am I creating this, or is this something else? And it's, what I would say is just be aware that sometimes you're picking up on other people's bubbles. Yeah. Sometimes you get up really close and personal with someone else's bubble. Not always intentionally either. So just be aware, I would say, that if you're seeing something in your reality that is not you, check in and do a checklist, if you like, just to make sure that it's not someone else's bubble that you're bumping up against. So as well as your brain having these different frequencies that it operates under or with, through, yeah, other areas in your body also have different frequencies. So you could say that there is actually a physical body and you have internal organs. That's one layer. Next layer is, if everything is frequency, then that includes the physical body, that includes everything that's internal, inside your physical body. So do we really have blood? Well, it might look like it if you cut yourself. However, blood has a frequency, which is 321.9 hertz. So it's just a frequency. Yeah. So you have multiple frequencies going on inside your physical body. So the brain, for example, has a frequency of 315.8 hertz. Your bones have a frequency of 418.3 hertz. So it's very specific. Yeah, it's very, very specific. In terms of the chakras, so this is the metaphysical overlay or underlay, actually, I would say, because we are metaphysical beings. So you could argue that the chakras are actually the reality, and the glands that overlay over the chakras are actually the overlay, whereas the chakras are the foundation, if you like. So each one of those has a different frequency, and there are actually two different types of frequencies for the chakras. There's the frequency of the what you would say is the physical manifestation under that chakra, yeah, and then you have the frequency that is the metaphysics of that chakra. It's just fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Even your nerves. So if you have nerve pain, for example, you can, if you have access to tuning forks, I highly recommend tuning forks, because you can get body tuners for in tuning forks. But something like nerve pain, you can manage with a 50 hertz tuning fork, which is, it's amazing. It really is. I know when I broke my wrist back in 2019, I used, because I had a cast on it, it acted like a sound chamber. So I used, what did I use on my, I used the 50 hertz tuning fork. I used the, what was it? It was an Otto tuning fork. Hang on, bear with me. Where's it gone? So the Ottos, I think it's 128 hertz is what I used, as well as the 111, 396, 528. All the main ones I used, as well as other things. I created a Kundalini yoga sequence that helped with the regeneration of, and the healing of my wrist, because it was a very weird break. So I'm lucky, actually, that I was able to use frequency to heal my wrist in just 2 weeks. 2 weeks it took. How do I know that? How do I know it healed in 2 weeks? Because I fell on it. I fell straight on my wrist and it didn't hurt. So I knew at that point that it was healed. And I also knew, because the 128 hertz tuning fork is used by paramedics to determine whether there's a fracture or not, because if there is a fracture, the bone will wiggle and you will get pain. So I knew that my wrist had healed in those 2 weeks, because when I used the 128 tuning fork, I was getting no pain. One of the things I was also using was a mirror. So I would mirror my left wrist to my right wrist. So again, that's a frequency. So the frequency of a healed wrist one side is intentionally put onto the wrist on the other side, which is in need of healing. It really is magic. And if everything is frequency, then that means everything is magic, obviously. So the planets, that's the other thing I want to talk about. Planets have specific frequencies. Because we've recently bought a new singing bowl. It's a big one. And it's Venus. It's a Venus crystal singing bowl. And it's tuned to 221.23 hertz. Very specific. So all the planets, including, because I always include Pluto. I think Pluto is included in there. Yes, it is. Pluto is 140.25 hertz. So if you wanted to connect with a planetary energy, the really precise way to do it would be with the frequency that planet resonates at. Yeah. So if you do any kind of ritual work, anything like that, and again, you can buy tuning forks. You don't need to go out and buy a big crystal bowl. You can buy tuning forks that are tuned to the planets, including Pluto. So there are, I don't know, I just find it really fascinating that there is a very powerful type of healing that comes with frequency, vibration, and sound. Even there was a recent thing that Ian was watching to do with lasers. Now, this was around the time he was having radiotherapy. So this was just before Crimbo. And what they found in lasers, yeah, I can't remember, I don't know much about lasers, but in this particular laser they were studying, you'll never fucking guess, excuse my French, you will never guess what they saw from a certain angle when this laser was being shone in a certain way. There were something that looked like hieroglyphics in the light, yeah. So the frequency of that particular light, that waveform of light, had, funny, Andy, that we were talking about coding earlier, it had code in it. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, I'd say that means that all light frequencies have coding in it. That includes the sun. So when people are talking about the sun, and at the moment, I'm not sure if there's a lot of solar activity going on. I know there was a big dark spot on the sun that was constantly firing stuff at us. But I know the energies at the moment, these past few days, have been very intense. My teeth have been doing a merry dance, I tell you. Ian's had like a hissing, very loud hissing in his ears for the past 3 days. It's like we are being given streams of code in the light and the other types of waveforms, frequencies that are coming from the sun. Yeah. And what does that mean? There's even in the lightning, when we're in a thunderstorm, that light that we see will have coding in it. And we know what it feels like, don't we? When there's just the thunderstorm is just about to hit, yeah? There's electricity in the air. There's something in the air. Well, that's frequency. We are feeling frequency just before a thunderstorm. And in the middle of a thunderstorm, we are also feeling the frequencies, yeah? So you know, what we do is sound healing, but you know, it sounds quite surface level sound healing, yeah. But I can tell you, my one of my first experiences, I suppose, of some real healing that came with frequency, vibration, and sound. You may or may not have heard of Tim Wheater. He is the god of sound, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, and that's who we did our training with. So when we first connected with him, we were invited to. It was I don't think it was classed as a gong bath because they had other instruments as well, but it was mainly gongs, specifically tuned, I will say, because you can get different types of instruments. You can get them specifically tuned to frequencies, or you can get, I mean, our gongs, they're given names, but they're not what are called, not orchestral, symphonic. They're not symphonic. So they don't have a specific frequency they resonate at. But these ones that we experienced on this particular day, they were. I can't remember the frequency that these gongs were tuned at, but you know, they worked their magic. So for years and years, I'd had this pain in my shoulder that would come and go, and when it was with me, it was like a neuralgic pain that was like deep in the shoulder. Could have been from when I had an accident on my push bike many years previously. I don't know what it was all about, but what I do know, so we were sat on chairs and everyone started to lay down, but I stayed sitting in my chair. I don't know why. And throughout, from when they first started playing their gongs to when it ended, it felt like my shoulder, well, it was so painful. I wanted to get up and run out of the room. And I am not joking about that. It was that painful. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? But I sat and I breathed because, you know, no yogic breathing. So I was breathing through it. And, you know, it's like it was doing its magic, but it didn't feel like magic, I have to say. And as soon as they stopped playing those gongs, the pain stopped. And that has never come back. Obviously, other pains have come and gone during that time, because that was about 11 years ago now. It's never come back. It's never come back. So what does that tell you? That tells you that a frequency was basically rearranging something that had been going on in my shoulder for many years and had balanced it. Because that's really what this is all about, isn't it? It's about balancing our whole being, from, you know, our auric body, our light body, all the way down to, you know, the little bits inside the cells. You know, it's all about balancing it with frequency, vibration, and sound. The other thing that is it's very simple, but it's very powerful. So when I was a child, you know, like many of us at this particular certain age, you know, over 50, I don't know many people my age that had really understanding parents. So, you know, I used to have to work out ways to manage how I was feeling about things when I was a child. And one of the ways I did that was by singing to myself. Now, you know, you can say, well, that's just singing to yourself, Ange. But what I realized later on in my journey was when you exhale and you create a longer exhale than inhale, essentially what you're doing is you're activating the body's relaxation response. So why is that important? Well, when you sing, when you create frequency, vibration, and you emit a sound, yeah, when you sing, your exhale is longer than your inhale. And when I realized that, I knew then why, when I was a child, I used to sing to myself, because it was a way to calm myself down through frequency, vibration, and obviously sound. So it's so, I think it's just such a powerful tool for rebalancing ourselves, but also, you know, if we can get in touch with the tuning, the 432 tuning, and how that, you know, go out and buy a 432 hertz tuning fork, use it, and tell me that it doesn't make a difference. That's a challenge. I set you a challenge to go and try it. Or, you know, if you can't afford to buy a tuning fork, find some 432 hertz music or sounds on YouTube. There's loads out there. Yeah. Play it and tell me that it doesn't affect your whole being. Because I know it does. And that's, you know, it's not just the example of my shoulder. I've had so many people that we've done sound healing for, or that I've given ways to. There was a lady from years ago who had very high blood pressure, and I gave her a breathing pattern. This breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 8. Very simple, yeah. She used that over a period of time and lowered her high blood pressure. That's frequency, vibration, and sound waves, if you like. So it's, if you want any kind of healing to go on, or the restoration of your being, yeah, so that's essentially what we're talking about, the restoration and balancing of who we really are. You know, when you get to that point, you get to the point where you can sit in the void for, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour, 2 hours, who knows? And you can sit in that space, and I don't want to say something as trite as just be, but essentially that is what you are doing when you're in the void space. Because there is, for me, I suppose my experience of the void is somewhere where I can just completely let go and go, that's what it does. That's what it does. There is a the frequency 111 does that very well with the physical body. It's really good for really enabling that relaxation response. Yeah, 111 frequency. Was there anything else I wanted to say around frequency? Oh yes, neutrinos. So you knew I was going to talk about neutrinos at some point, because they are my favorite thing to talk about. So neutrinos, yeah. I call them, well, I used to call them the 5D particle, but I think we've gone beyond that now, because they are multi-dimensional particles, essentially. They're not restricted to 5 dimensions. They are multi-dimensional particles, which have been measured. They have been measured. Scientists, in inverted commas, know they exist. They acknowledge that neutrinos are a thing. Yeah. So neutrinos can do what they like. Neutrinos can coalesce and be a solid object, or neutrinos can just go off and be light. Neutrinos can disappear and then reappear as they like. They have been measured. And I think I think since 2016, they've been on the rise. So they are amplifying. Yeah. They've been measured as coming out of the earth. I find that fascinating. This is all research we did back in 2021, I think it was. Sci-fi explores this idea of neutrinos, of like bits of light, if you like, yeah, that coalesce, form something solid, and then can just go boop, and off they go again. Yeah. It's magic. Yeah. That is, by definition, yeah. If you were going to say what is magic, you say, well, it's things being able to form a solid object and then disappear again. That's magic, is it not? And wouldn't it be really cool if we were so self-realized that we could do that? That we could disperse our physical body, go and do something, and then come back again. Now, I don't know if any of you have experienced anything quite like that. I very nearly have, and I think I've spoken about this before, but I got a little bit scared, so it didn't happen. But certainly, if you can get into the delta wave sleep, not sleep, but that delta wave state during meditation, you'll experience something that is very close to dispersing your body, your physical body, yeah, which is that it feels like, how can I describe it? It's like prana tingles, but it's really, 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 really cold. It's like you're sitting in ice. And you can be in it can be in the middle of summer and you can experience this, yeah. And it's like it's almost like the edges, the boundaries of your body, your physical body, is like fizzing, and it's not fizzing. It's really hard to describe it. It's like it's uncoalescing. I don't even know if that's a word, but it is now. It's uncoalescing, yeah, and it's kind of, it's moving. It's moving. It's because everything in this universe, it might not look like it, but everything in this universe is fluidic. Yeah, it's always moving. We know it. Yeah, science knows that. Well, they say they do. So for that to start happening, for the boundaries of your being to feel like they are uncoalescing, is quite strange, but really cool at the same time. So I think, you know, if we were going to do anything that brought us closer to who we truly are, it's, you know, connecting with our heart center, not leaving out the other chakras, because they are as important, I would say, but being able to, and you don't have to sit in meditation to be in the void space. When you're being creative, you are directly in the void space. That's what I would say. If you are walking in nature and you are not on your phone, you know, you see that so many times. People are out for a walk and they're not actually paying attention to where they're walking and they're on their phone. It's like, okay, why are you out? Why are you even bothering? If you're out in nature, you know, be nature. It's just a little pet peeve of mine. So yeah, I'm going to stop waffling. I hope some of this, if not all of it, has made sense. But I'm going to open it up. So if anyone has anything they'd like to share, or they want to ask questions around tuning fork sound healing.
Thank you for the show.
Did it make sense?
We've got a guy that's been itching to comment on something. So now that we're in the Q&A interaction section,
cool.
I think Philippe's got a question or he's got a comment to make. So Philippe, if you wish to unmute your mic, please You can do so now and join in the end of the show.
Cool.
Good evening. I'm speaking from Belgium. Peace
Oh,
officer,
hello.
Belgium.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
So I have a question, which is physically like two magnets. Let's say that you have two magnets.
Yeah.
And they pull onto each other.
Yeah.
Most of the people will say, well, it's magnetism, isn't it?
Yeah, most people would say it's magnetism. You could say it's frequency.
Yeah, but it isn't. It's the void. It's the 0 point, which is pulling. It's like the drain in your shower that is pulling right down, and what you see above is below, and what below is above.
Yeah.
So this pulling is what's it's only like the principle and the attribute, compression and decompression.
Yeah.
Which in nature is like a law.
Yes.
And everything turns out fantastic. If you go against it, man, you're gonna have struggle. You're gonna have, I don't know what you're gonna get. But karma is at least the effect of cause and effect, right?
Yes, absolutely. The expansion and the contraction, definitely.
And that's the thing that in common day knowledge is completely ignored. Because we only think about what's happening in the material world, but we're forgetting what's not there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the same thing like a radio signal. When you throw down the radio on the ground, you splash it in 1,000 pieces, the radio is not going to work anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the question is the signal there? Yeah, the signal is there.
Yes.
It's always there. It's always been there, and this is what we call ether. Ein Sof. Ein Sof in the Kabbalah is the highest above Ein and above Ein Sof. Ein Sof Aur, which is the ether. So this ether is like managing it at the same time as managing it, and there where the word balance comes in through it. And this is what I find a very peculiar knowledge, because you don't have it at hand 100%. And that's why we feel most of the time very bad as awakened persons, because everything which is around us is affecting our frequencies. With the smart meter, with the bailiff throwing letters through your door, which is also kind of a magnetism. And this is where we have, as a human being, to stand up against, to say no, because we know. I'm a man, and I had a woman, but the woman also had a man, and we're now divorced, and so it's going on and on and on and on, and it's all about divide and conquer to keep the void from the void. To keep it unbalanced. Well, that's what the magicians are doing right now, the wrong ones.
Yeah.
That's why we need a lot of peace officers, and we need a lot of magicians to jump in the line and say, hey, wait, I know something. And I think that's very powerful to raise up the level of frequencies, because you cannot raise the frequencies how could you call it? There's also particles in life that are not will fit magnetism, which is like bismuth. Bismuth drowns it down to zero. In the presence of bismuth, you cannot create magnetism.
Okay, yeah.
Magnetism is only a word, because there's no magnetism and there's no gravity. It's only pressure and decompression.
Yeah, it's the breath, isn't it? It's the breath of everything. which expands and
It's a breath,
contracts.
well,
Yeah.
if you would take the breath, like you inhale and you exhale, that's one field.
Mm.
The next breath is another field, and that's the field, because there's no scientific person that can define what is a field. Neither can they define quantum physics, because quantum physics is the only agreement that we have on measuring 5 centimeters. In nature, there's no measurements. There's only frequency, and there's only sequence, like you have 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, but it's all between the 1 and the 1. And we only can be between the 1. We go from the 1 to the 1, and from being the 1 back again to the 1. We cannot go out of that, and that's the ether.
Mm.
That's the word of God, because it's a frequency. And if you call it God of Allah, or you call it Buddha, you call it natural law, you call it fruitcake, you call it whatever you wish, it is there. You cannot ignore it. You can ignore it, but it will not ignore you. And when you're in the 6th level of cause and effect, then you get karmas, one after another one after another one. And as a human being, they will never let you go to gender, which is also in LGBTQ and stuff like that, the materializing of, because gender is not like being a man and a woman and having sex. It's gender of the generative principle, which is agape love. Agape love is care, which is an emanation. It's the 7 principles that form an 8th principle, and then it emanates in love. And love is the law under free will.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
that sounds good, Philip. Yeah.
Yes, it's all about the love, definitely.
Yeah, Angie, it's almost 7 o'clock, so the recording show part of the show is going to come to an end in a
cool.
few minutes after show chat, like we normally do. So, have you got a few final words to wrap up the recording, and then we can have an after show chat?
Okay, what would I say? Just to if you were going to put any of this into a practical thing, I mean, my suggestion, as a pagan, as a witch, would be to, go and connect, be with nature, because, in nature, nature doesn't. So if a flower opens, it doesn't discriminate about where it's going to open and who it's going to open for, and it's pure love consciousness. So if you want to experience that, for then that frequency to affect you, then that's what you need to go and do. You need to go and be with nature, or walk in nature, or I don't know, look at the flowers, sniff the flowers, for goodness sake.
I am love, you are love, we are love.
Indeed.
Yeah, that was a perfect moment to stop the recording. Right, that's the recording show part taken care of. Thank you very much, Angie. Much love to you for doing this hour. And thank you to everybody that's joined in and listened. We're now in the after show bit now, which is basically